Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Monday meeting. We're back after last week was a bank holiday, so we didn't have a meeting that Monday, but we are now back. And yeah, I hope that you're all doing well. I am still in my standard place, and Ash, as usual, is moving his way around the world and space wherever he sees fit. So, Ash, would you like to tell people where you're coming from today?
I'm at SpaceX headquarters today. Hopefully it's coming
Cape
up.
Canaveral.
Yeah, exactly. Just making sure that this is coming up because I have changed my Zoom settings, so hopefully everybody can see it. Otherwise, this is.
I mean, I can see it, so I'm assuming other people will be able to as well.
Yeah, it is. It's highlighting the speaker as we speak. Yeah, so I'm here, obviously in my flat, but kind of thanks to Zoom at SpaceX too, with the Falcon 9 rocket launching just.
Nice.
And I'm sure we'll get all into that in a second, but that's basically what's taken up my personal work and all my life in the last weekend as a massive space nerd. So,
I've
yeah.
actually been to Cape Canaveral before.
Oh, so gel.
So randomly, I was there. I think it was 2007. So the last time they did like a manned takeoff from there was like 9 years ago, I think, or something like that. But I was there in 2007. It was just on holiday in Florida, and there was some launch that happened whilst we were there. I don't know. We visited Cape Canaveral on the day that there wasn't any launch happening, obviously, because you can't just rock around or like wander around. But I remember being in a hotel. I was quite young. I was like what was I, like 11, 12? And watching like a rocket like take off, and like you could see it out of the window of the hotel.
Is it a rocket or a space shuttle?
I don't know if it was manned, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I can't remember. It was a long time ago now, but very, very cool.
Same.
Very cool.
So
Yeah.
cool. I got, I don't know whether you know this, but I got when I was at my old agency, my social agency, I applied to do some social PR coverage for one of the launches, and I got approved for it.
I think you've mentioned this. It's very cool.
Yeah, but I just obviously early days, and it was self-funded, so I had to find like $3,500 within like a couple of weeks to be able to fund going, and it just wasn't possible, which sucks. But apparently somewhere in the world I'm on some approved PR list for covering
NASA
launches. Yeah, so it was really cool. But yeah, for those who don't know what actually happened, if you've been under a rock, I guess, for the last week, in amidst all of the crazy, terrible things that are happening in the world right now, there was also something pretty cool, which was the Falcon 9 launch, which was the first commercial space flight, commercially manned, human space flight to space, and rendezvous with the International Space Station. So we sent 2 humans in a rocket on top of that rocket that you can see there, really quickly, up to the ISS, and they're up there now. It was insane. And it's like a first for loads of reasons. So they landed the bottom part of the rocket upright, which still completely blows my mind. It's insane. If anybody has,
normally they lose it. So normally the whole point is that part of the reason why space travel is so expensive on top of everything else is that most of the equipment that you send up into space you lose as it re-enters the atmosphere, and then either burns up or crashes into the ocean. And it's designed to do that. But one of the special things about SpaceX is that they don't lose the stuff. That a big chunk of what they do is that they can actually control the rocket as it comes back down. Right, I watched that, but that was for me the favorite. I watched it live too, and that was my favorite part of the whole thing, just seeing it like land back down on the platform. I thought it was awesome.
Ridiculous. The thing that still blows my mind is when they did 2 at the same time. Like, if anybody wants to watch something and get absolute goosebumps or choked up about how this is all absolutely insane, watch that, because it's just ridiculous. Just seeing 2 rockets land upright at the same time next to each other, it's just like something out of science fiction, isn't it? But there's a whole bunch of other things like this the rocket itself. People are talking about sustainability being on the cards at the moment. The rocket itself it produces less carbon footprint than one transatlantic flight. So for a Boeing 737, so like a normal transatlantic flight, if you were going on holiday and the airplane was full, that's less that's more than that rocket would have produced. So actually not too bad, relatively speaking, for the environment too. And yeah, just insane. It should and could, getting back to, I guess, business and startups, spark a new space race, a commercial one, which, you know, whether you're a capitalist or not, is probably good for human endeavors. So yeah, interesting.
Or at least morale, I think people
morale, for sure right now
definitely invested into it. But you got that, you got like the Virgin like space stuff as well. So there's a couple of people within the
Blue Origin, funded by Amazon, I think. They have some interesting rockets, quite phallic. It was a bit weird. There's a whole bunch of different like projects, and some are crazier or more outlandish than others. You've got the solar sail project that's been worked on over time, which the whole idea of that is that it uses particles from the sun to power a sail, so that actually it doesn't need an engine in space and it just uses sunlight to drive it, but the constant hitting against the sail makes it go faster and faster and faster until it eventually hits near the speed of light, which is bonkers. It's kind of a ways away yet, but this is why I'm so fascinated by space, because, you know, we've explored most of the planet. Obviously the oceans are like, what is it, 5%? We've the ocean, so there's still loads there. But like, we've done most of this now. Like, you love maps, and there's not really much more you can add to a map anymore unless we change things. There's a whole lot of maps up there, and it would be cool to go and see them. So yeah, it's just cool, I think.
Yeah, it is very, very cool.
All weekend, basically.
Nice. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I think a lot of people were watching it. I tried to actually see the space shuttle as it kind of came through the sky, like around, I think it was for like 10:30, I think, at night, I think it was. But it was, I mean, it's so light at the moment. There was still a bit too much light around for like me to actually be able to spot it in the sky. But I know a couple of people managed to see it. So it's very, very cool.
So cool.
For sure. But yeah, so I like you kind of was quite invested in that, but like in terms of moving on to more kind of work orientated topical things, I guess, my kind of thing that I wanted to mention or bring up this week, and I'm interested to hear your kind of opinion on it, was that, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but essentially Shopify came out and said that they were going to be having they weren't going to be bringing people back into the office, and that they were going to be going fully remote, as a kind of, as I think a mix of, as a result of the current situation, also just something that they've wanted to do anyway. And I was just looking into it and looking into kind of how other kind of larger companies are going to approach the kind of back to work, or if they're ever going to go actually back to office space work at all. And there's things like Facebook are doing it, but only for experienced staff. So if you're a new joiner who has no experience of working remote, then you have to go into the office still. But if you're experienced or have remote experience, then they will allow you to work remotely. Like Google have put together this, like, well, not put together, but essentially there's all this talk of like giving people bonuses for working from home because you don't have to pay for the desk space, and but at the same time you don't have to pay for the equipment to allow someone to be able to work from home. So they've got this like $1,000 like equipment thing that they've pulled together to kind of pay for people to be able to work from home. And yeah, it was just really interesting. There's like I read an article this morning where it's like 74% of SMEs in the UK are currently working from home, which is, you know, that's a big chunk of the entire kind of like business market in the UK, essentially. And yeah, I was just interested. I've spoken about it with my friends about kind of like what that future work looks like, and on like a personal level. And I was just interested to see kind of what your take on all of was, because we're kind of entering into that time frame now where offices are slowly starting to reopen, some more than others, over the next kind of couple of months. And just thought it was interesting.
Similar to Google, I think, like my outlook is where I had this conversation with somebody who runs a hosting company in Florida the other day, and they were talking about how I can't remember who it is, HostGator, GoDaddy, somebody like that. They have like they're famous for having like really crazily fun offices. Like they've got, you know, a creche and a gym and like, I don't know, whatever, crazy golf, swimming pool, whatever. It's kind of like a home from home, more bonkers than your home probably. And, you know, he commented saying that like that obviously isn't available to people now. So how do you build that culture when people are working at home? And yeah, I kind of had the same kind of idea around what Google was saying, where, okay, cool, if you're going to be saving, £1 million a year on an office for, 10, 20 people, whatever it's going to be, depending on where you are in the world, then, let's say it is 10 people, then you're looking at, okay, how can we make the most of that money? Like, we're saving a huge amount of money. Let's give each of those people, let's say it's 20 people, 30, 40, 50 people. Let's give some of that saving to those people to help them build better workspaces. So, if this goes on for a long time, if we're being like really bullish on working from home, then I think we're going to start to see innovation in home development. Like, we're not just going to be asking how many bedrooms a house has anymore. We're going to be asking if there's a bedroom and a dedicated office, rather than a bedroom you turn into an office. Like, that's how far this could go. We're going to start seeing, and capital at risk. This isn't an economic suggestion to invest, but like companies like IKEA, etc., they're going to be starting to innovate in the home workspace area, right? Like, they do desks already, but can they do more ergonomic desks or better desks for the working from home environment? And tech's going to follow, and workspaces are, but you get like, more macro with it. I think companies like Shopify are ones to watch. Like, if I had the money, I'd be investing a lot into probably Shopify right now, just because I think they're doing a lot of the right things. I'm slightly worried they're starting to copy people, because they're launching their own email service soon called Hey, which feels a little bit like they're going, oh, cool, Gmail is part of Google, so let's do our own, and Superhuman's getting a lot of hype, so let's do our own. But if it works, then actually anyone who's got a Shopify website starts to send emails from there, and then they start to own that whole ecosystem for e-commerce businesses. So lots there. But yeah, working from home, I think the biggest piece is just going to be culture. Like, how do you, and we've
so I had some really interesting conversations with a couple of my friends, and like I think one of the biggest problems it's going to have, especially if you have a flexible policy where it's not 100% work from home or 100% remote, you're going to get a bit of a generational divide, because a lot of people my age rely on office space and going into workspace is a way to kind of build relationship, make friends, like everything that comes with that. Most of our social lives are tied up in those spaces. And, a couple of my friends I've spoken to, they were like, if my office decides not to go back, I will move job to a place that has a physical space, because I want to be in an office. Like, I think for older people that have to commute and have families and have their kind of friendship base and everything, and don't gain anything like that by going into work, I totally get it. And I really do think that that's a really positive step in the right direction for them. But I do think there really is going to be a massive risk to, like, my generation of people that, me and my brother are sat here, we can't wait to get back into a physical space. Like, I miss being able to walk into work, and I miss being able to like communicate with people in that kind of way. And I know that's not the same for everyone, but I do think that it could pose a generational problem in having like a younger workforce in the office and then having an older workforce at home. And what challenges does that create by having that generational
Does that
divide?
then break down like social norms at the moment, where it's like, oh, your friends are, if you work a normal, quote unquote, normal job, like 9 to 5, your friends are friends that you have from work, and then you've also got your friends that you've met at school. If you take that friends from work aspect away, because they're more acquaintances now, and yes, they're a team, and yes, they're friends in a way, but they're people you've never met. If you start joining companies that are fully remote, do you either double down with your friends that are like the ones you grew up with, and you end up with even deeper, longer term relationships with them? Because what it's like, I guess, for our parents, they kind of parted ways with their friends early on. Maybe that happens less now, or maybe we end up meeting people and making friends less through work, but more through hobbies. So it's like, okay, well, actually, if a company maybe turns nomadic, and it's like, you can work from anywhere, we're going to just travel around and work from a laptop, that's cool. Then rather than making friends through work, are you making friends through the gym that you go to? Because I guess maybe that shifts. It's like, I've got acquaintances at the gym, but friends through work, maybe it shifts. So it's actually friends at the gym and acquaintances through work.
I don't know. I guess cultural-wise, generally speaking, it's easier to make friends with people from your workspace because you're kind of forced to engage with them. Whereas at the gym, there would be in any of those kind of hobby-based things, I think there'd be a shift. And also, you still have to bear in mind that if the work expectation in terms of workload is the same, a lot of people don't have the time to go and meet loads of new people via hobbies. Like, if you're working full time, you don't necessarily have that capacity. So
work is more efficient.
Yeah, for sure. If that shifts alongside it, that's a different conversation. But I don't think, especially for kind of older companies, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, at least not in the short term. I think they'll have to,
100%.
but it's going to take time. And so, yeah, I just thought it was very interesting as kind of like what the future of work. There's lots of discussions around what the future of work looks like at the moment, and I just think, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but I just think there's very interesting in terms of the kind of unexpected consequences that might come out of something like that too. So yes, that was my topical thing for the week. But what is it that you learned last week, or what were you working on last week?
So last week internally, the thing that we're working on and learned from was really kind of like gearing up towards what this week will contain, which is around our advertising campaign. We've realized that the coronavirus campaign was built in solidarity with startups and the challenges they're facing during lockdown and pandemic conditions, but it's also seeing a whole lot of people join the community, which, as a secondary, or not even secondary, but tertiary benefit, may turn into revenue for us at some point. But obviously it's important to be clear that this was always about impact for us. And so in between that, the secondary kind of approach is, well, actually, there's probably lots of people out there that don't know still what we're doing, and they don't know about Yenna, and they don't know about this campaign that we're running. So let's help them to find out about it. And maybe that helps us, build a better community, and maybe as a byproduct of that eventually turns into more revenue. So it would be silly for us to not try and deliver more impact and not try and deliver more revenue as a company by not advertising the rest of the campaign, which is going on for one more month now. So yeah, last week was a lot of learning around, what works, what doesn't work, and actually enjoying being really transparent with the community, because we came up with some visuals for the ads, and they weren't great, and shared them amongst us, and we were like, you rightly said that they look like car sales ads and so on.
Yeah, we had a bit of a disagreement, but actually we've come to a middle ground where I think they kind of, I feel like we've been met in the middle in terms of what the visual now looks like.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because it's creative, but it does the job. People will see it. Hopefully you'll start seeing the ads because we'll set them live, hopefully today, if not tomorrow, and they'll be out there. But yeah, they're real testimonials from real members with our kind of brand cheekiness to it. And this kind of leads me into what I learned generally over last week, which was around touching again back on what SpaceX have been doing, which is about the power of brand experience. And you kind of have to ask yourself a question as to why the SpaceX journey and why what they're doing right now feels so cool. Anybody who saw that the suits were just far more futuristic, and they weren't bulky anymore, and they were actually able to do this, whereas previously you couldn't because the fingers were so squidgy.
And even from the immersiveness perspective of as a spectator being able to see all the live feeds from various parts of the ship and from inside, that was so cool. That's not something that you normally, even it's government run, you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, we need to make this super publicly accessible. So yeah, sorry.
That's it, and that's, you can almost guarantee, you can't guarantee unless you know, I guess, from the inside, but you can almost guarantee that all of that stuff isn't powered by the NASA team. It's powered by the SpaceX team, because they understand commercial viability. It's the reason they sent the Tesla up into space, right? Some people are like, that was so pointless. Well, actually, when things launch, they usually just use concrete blocks because they have to test how heavy a payload they can take up. Why not send something that's the equivalent weight, but it's just more interesting, because you're just going to get loads of PR from it. And obviously we all remember when that car went into space. And so they've done the same with, the touch screens on board the Falcon 9, the capsule that the astronauts were in. It looks like the inside of an airliner now. It actually just genuinely looks like a bit of a 747 with a small little window that you can look out of. Even down to the cuddly toy, there's a little cuddly toy on the seat next to them, because there's 4 seats, only 2 guys went up, but they decided to take a cuddly toy from their kids. And yes, it's a nice story, but it's also very marketable. So I think what I learned from there was something that actually, I guess, kind of inspired me to do a couple of posts on LinkedIn over the weekend, which I don't usually do because it's kind of technically work. But we had some really great stuff happen because of the campaign. We had people joining from all over and inquiring from all over. Someone from Australia who sells therapeutic bath spas. We had somebody from Dakar who's trying to kind of solve, I guess, the healthcare challenges over there by creating one online portal for people to go to and get the healthcare that they need. We had somebody from Uganda kind of inquire. We had somebody who sells chutney from Greece, and it was just really inspiring to me. And I thought, you know what, rather than just sit here and go, that's awesome, I'm going to tell people that that's awesome, because that's, you know, that's the sort of thing that SpaceX would do. We're covering this, we're documenting this. And as a result, I think, you know, what was it, 2 days since I posted that on LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's been mad.
It's got like, you know, 100 over the weekend. It wasn't even on a work day, but there's like 130 odd reactions. And I think it's been seen now by about 8,500 people. And so it's just that knock on. And I think the one thing that I learned that I think hopefully other people can learn is that there is small PR activities in everything you do as a company that you can shout about. And there are also small PR opportunities like the Forbes article that we got last week, which was amazing too. So yeah, don't take what you do for granted, find the exciting bit and share it. That's probably the lesson. And that's what I did last week. Nice. What about you?
Nice. So I wanted to touch on something from like a couple of weeks ago that I said I'd come back to, which was our experience of having our first intern, Liv. And I wanted to talk a bit about kind of like our experience of having an intern and what, you know, kind of how we approached it and all that sort of thing, because I felt there's a lot of, I know that before I had our first one, I was uncertain about how best to go about it, and I had a lot of questions, so I feel like there's a lot of transferable kind of like learnings and stuff from that. So thought I'd touch on that as kind of like what I learned, not so much from last week but from like the past couple of weeks.
Good.
So Liv joined us back in, I want to say it was the start of February, maybe end of Jan. I can't remember the exact date because everything's kind of gone into mosh in my head since lockdown. But yeah, so she was with us for about 3.5 months, and obviously we spent half of that delivering and doing that in person, and then half of that doing that remotely as well. So we kind of had a transition based experience as part of that. And what me and you kind of what we agreed when we first decided we were going to get an intern was that we wanted someone who we were going to treat like an employee and do everything that you would with an employee. So that was, we had a full onboarding process with like we had like her first week, she was part-time, had like a whole like induction like sessions to kind of get her up to speed with who we were as a company, where we were going to go, and more internal things about how we just kind of work as a business and how kind of who we are as individuals. And as part of that, we did kind of like throughout her internship, we took her for like 3 specific feedback sessions, I'd say. So within her first week, we went for lunch and had like a goal setting kind of session where we were trying to work out exactly what she wanted to get out of the internship. So we could essentially, even though we had stuff that we know she needed to do, also frame the outcomes around what she would get the most from, because we wanted to make sure we're delivering value for her. And then about halfway through, we did kind of like we touched base, saw how we were going with that. And kind of, I know that there's a lot of talk around how people do feedback, and whether you should have continuous feedback or should you have like, like 6 months or annual reviews, or what the best way to do that is. And we had a big discussion about this beforehand, the best way of doing it. And we kind of both agreed that doing it's great if you can create an environment in which there is regular feedback, but the problem is that it doesn't only really go skin deep. You don't get into the deeper stuff that is actually playing on someone's mind and understand more about what it is they want to get out of what they're doing. So we made the specific point of having kind of like, it worked out as like once every kind of 6 weeks to 2 months, I guess, roughly how the internship went. We had those kind of feedback sessions so that we kind of had a specific space in which you could bring any challenges, we could bring our kind of own feedback, and it was definitely 2-way, like we were asking for feedback as well, and we got some really useful stuff out of those sessions. So we had 3 of those across the internship, and just generally kind of as a whole, we very much treated Liv like an employee and gave her autonomy that we would want to go along with that, whoever it is that's joining Yenas. So And you know, you saw, but as kind of hopefully anyone that watches this will have seen, she's done lots of member interviews with different people from our community, from doing different things across different areas of the world as well. And generally, she just very much ingrained herself in the business. And I think for us, one of the biggest things we were looking for, maybe didn't realize we needed, but the most valuable thing that came out of it for us was that having that kind of critical eye and someone who sits outside of kind of, you know, we've been working together for a long time now, and you don't realize how much of a bubble you get yourself into. And even when we think we're challenging each other, like, are we really challenging each other as much as we could be? And so having someone outside of that kind of give a new, fresh perspective was really, really valuable. And that's not something that, you know, we didn't write that on the job description beforehand. That was just kind of something that we ended up deciding that we kind of wanted to involve her in, and then ended up being a super valuable part of everything that she did. So yeah, I just that's kind of my more general lessons learned from the past couple of months. And they were definitely sorry, go on. Yeah.
Worth mentioning, there's like a really good lesson that was learned there, which is around the title that we use. Like, one of the main things that Liv kind of was really open and honest about, which was super helpful. And I know she said that she was kind of tentative about being open about this, but actually the culture that we built early on made her feel okay with suggesting it. And I'm really glad for that, because without knowing this, we wouldn't be able to make the change, which is around the title. And it's actually, now I think about it, I was just thinking about it just then while you were explaining it, that the title intern. So Liv's feedback was that the title intern wasn't really like that exciting. Didn't really explain what she was doing. It felt a bit kind of undermining a little bit when emailing people, "Hi, I'm the intern. Liv is the intern," etc.
Yeah, and being introduced like that as well in those kind of situations as well.
Like via the blog and stuff. And actually, what I realized while you were just explaining it is actually, like, an internship is a type of role, not the title of the role.
I think I definitely had to get more comfortable with that, because I didn't really know how to describe it in this, because it is an internship. Like, I can't. But when we were after she kind of gave us that feedback, we changed it, and I think we changed it to marketing officer or something like that. Just so she had like a more formalized title when we introduced her and stuff.
Yeah, because she's not, you know, she is interning, but the job isn't
it doesn't define what she does at all.
Ask somebody what they do for a living, they don't go, "Oh, I'm full-time." Like, they don't say that. They go, "Oh, I'm a part-timer." And you're like, yeah, but what do you do? Like, an internship is, like, I guess, a type of role, not the role. And so it's like, cool, I'm interning at Yenna as a marketing officer. That's kind of the way that we're going to, I guess, approach this going forwards. And that means that from day one, whether they're interning or not, anyone that joins the company will have a role that they can fulfill and something they can feel purposeful about, which is really great. And, you know, we wouldn't have known that without Liv. So super helpful insight. What about this week then? What are we doing from here?
So the main thing that aside from kind of working with you on the ads that we're going to be delivering over the next kind of week or two, the main thing I'm going to be working on is essentially, as people have probably seen, we've been running some kind of virtual meetups ourselves as a company that have been hosted by either one of us over the past couple of months, because obviously our physical meetups have been shut down for the time being. And so we've been doing that, but as we've been doing that, we've also been having our existing hosts come to us and asking whether they can still run their own virtual meetups kind of within their own communities that they've built up within their local areas. And so my key task, I guess, this week is going to be on developing guidelines and kind of more of a structure around that. Because obviously we have a structure around the physical events, but it's very different running them virtually. And so I just want to kind of pull together something that will allow our local hosts to be able to deliver virtual meetups. Obviously, I say in their cities. It's not in their cities because it's done virtually, but it's done with the communities that they've already built within their locations. Ultimately, they'll be accessible to people wherever they are, but they're designed to be able to kind of focus on more maybe local issues and things and have more of a localized approach to it, because obviously the situation is very different in different parts of the world. So it's super important that they're getting that perspective and not just kind of our kind of one size fits all this perspective. I don't want to have that as the sole focus. So that's what I'm working on mostly this week, and then hopefully over the next kind of couple of weeks and months we'll have more virtual meetups popping up that are being run by our hosts as well, which is exciting. So that's kind of my main thing this week. How about you?
I guess alongside the ad campaign stuff, which is going to be like one of the main focuses, don't want to do it lightheartedly and then not want to do it properly and really engage, like over engage on that. I think it's time. It's almost time that we've got like everything else repolished off after coronavirus hit from a fundraising point of view. So starting to have those sorts of conversations, like they've been happening passively, but people are starting to kind of bite now at what we're doing. Like especially with the PR stuff that started to happen, it's a really good excuse for us to start going out there and going, okay, look, we've had over the month that we've made Vienna free during coronavirus, we've had 50% growth of membership. We're seeing so many more people from so many different places engaging with us, and we're doing all of that still with pretty much zero ad budget. This is the first ad, so that people know, this is the first ad that will properly have run. Like we've done some before, but they've been chuck a little bit of money somewhere and see if it works. The first campaign really that we'll have properly done, I guess, or purposely created campaign. So it's there's a lot going on, and I think that's a good excuse to start igniting those conversations again and saying, hey, look, this is just forms part of a small part of the much bigger plan, and that plan is more coherent than it's ever been. So let's start having those conversations, and I think that's going to be the other part of the week. Aside from that, just a couple of phone calls with Plus members to make sure they're looked after and check in on their businesses and hold them accountable and checking on their homework and stuff. So that should be fun too. But yeah, other than that, just taking it as easy as possible, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially with the nice weather, it's good to give yourself the capacity to go out and enjoy it and get some vitamin D. Yeah, you've actually done it. I've sat outside quite a lot and I'm looking just as pasty as ever. So
it's I feel like you're one of those people that just doesn't tan.
No, I don't. I burn, but I don't really tan. So unfortunately, that is the life I lead. But yeah, no, definitely work-life balance super important right now.
But if you get red enough, then you could, on the next virtual meetup, just be a red version of your avatar, because that's what Tio has now. And it would just be true to life. So there you go.
Full tomato suit. Ready. Yeah, for sure. I'll start prepping.
Nice.
Cool. Nice.
Okay, so yeah, that's it, I guess, from us for the week. Good to be back with you all. And obviously, as always, we do these every week, unless there's a bank holiday or something crazy happening, which of course 2020 doesn't stop bringing us. But
yeah.
But if you do want to stay tuned on all of these, then obviously you can subscribe, and if anything in here has been interesting or entertaining to you, then you can hit the like button too. We'll be back with you next week. In the meantime, if you want to check out the Yenna community, just go to joinyenna.com, and we're here for any questions you might have. Just use the little chat box that's in the corner of our website.
It's real. We're not bots.
It's a robot on a Saturday night going, yes, we would love you to be part of the community. That's genuinely something happened this weekend. So that's it from us, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Cool. Bye guys.
Bye.